Hi, folks. Peter, Patter, and Perry once again. And today we're talking about Jarome Iginla. Well, start off with the Jarome Iginla story is that there's some real history to it. When you go back, Kent Nilsson was the original superstar of the Flames coming here with the team from Atlanta in 1980. Kent Nilsson would be traded in 1985 in exchange for a couple of second-round draft picks. One of them turned out to be Joe Nieuwendyk.
Wow.
And then Joe Nieuwendyk wound up being traded to the Dallas Stars for Jarome Iginla. So we had, what's that, almost 30 years of greatness based on, three players.
And three players with crazy talent.
Yeah, awesome talent.
And so when Iginla first got here, what was the buzz? I remember it as, he's some young stud in the Dallas organization. What did you know about him?
I want to go back to the night he was traded to the Flames.
Yeah.
It was in 1995. It was the night of the Christmas trade deadline. Flames had played a game in Pittsburgh, lost to Mario Lemieux and the gang. I think it was 8-1. And so we're on the bus going from the arena in Pittsburgh out to the airport to take a charter flight. Didn't charter all the time then, but it was back-to-back games. The next night was in Hartford. So they were still in the league. And so we're on the bus. Pierre Paget is coach of the team, and Guy Lapointe is one of the assistants. So we're driving in the bus to the airport. They stop at a Denny's restaurant. And we figured, well, I must be going in to get sandwiches for the flight or whatever. So they go in, and then they come back onto the bus, and away we go. Next thing you know, before we get to the airport, they stop at a Holiday Inn. And
are they going to payphones?
They're using the payphones. Because Al Coates is the general manager who's engineering this trade. He's back in Calgary, and he's keeping them updated with what is going on, obviously. But we had no idea what was going on. We thought there might be something.
Was Nieuwendyk with the team?
No, Nieuwendyk had not played a game with the team that year. Okay. He had been involved in a contract dispute with Doug Risebrough, who was the general manager at the start of that season, and Joe kind of left during training camp. So anyway, we stop at the Holiday Inn, get back to these guys, get back on the bus. We go to the airport, get on the charter plane, and we're just in the air when Pierre comes back and informs us that he made this trade. Joe Nieuwendyk traded to Dallas for Greg Millen and Jarome Iginla. So
Corey Millen.
Sorry, yes. Yeah. Corey Millen and also Jarome Iginla. Yeah. And I won't mention his name, but a member of the party said, we would never make that trade. And, well, sure enough, we made that trade. And it turned out to be just an awesome deal.
What was the media attention after that? What were people saying about it? And even in Calgary, what a bad trade it was. It was terrible.
Nobody really said terrible, but they were just equating it Nieuwendyk for Millen.
Yeah.
And gee whiz, that's not much of a deal there, but they weren't really figuring. Nobody had heard a whole lot about Jarome Iginla, even though he was playing in the Western Hockey League with Kamloops. Yeah. But after the World Junior Championships that were held in Boston, they knew who he was because he was the most valuable player of that tournament.
Wow. He had it all because he could score, he could skate, and he was tough.
He could fight.
Yeah.
He had more Gordie Howe hat tricks than Gordie Howe.
Oh, boy.
Well, yeah.
It's the Jarome Iginla.
Yeah. Well, I said that to him one night. I think after he had his 10th Gordie Howe hat trick, I'm interviewing him, and I said, they should change this to the Jarome Iginla hat trick.
Yeah.
Goal, an assist, and a fight. And, of course, how he is, no, Gordie Howe is the one and only, blah, blah, blah. But Gordie Howe had only 6 of them.
Wow.
While Jarome, I think, ended up having 14 in his career.
We have a new sponsor for the show, Spartan Development. Kicking ugly concrete to the curb, Perry. Why settle for second best?
I agree.
Peter Maher?
You got it.
Spartan Development, concrete restoration and coatings.
Love it. And Patter had mentioned, I want you to elaborate a little bit, his off-ice stuff. You were there. You'd be there when you guys were on the road, and Jarome would stay to say hi, or somebody wanted an autograph, or talk about that part of Jarome.
There were more buses held up for him than anybody. Lanny was another one.
Yeah.
They had to hold the buses a lot. But then, Lanny wasn't here 14 years. But Jarome, when we were on the road, when they're leaving the hotel, there's always a few people that know where the team is staying when they're on the road. So they would always come. They'd always kind of figure out what time the bus is leaving and the whole thing. Jarome would always come out 10 minutes before the bus would leave. And he'd sign all the autographs for anybody that was there. Now, he recognized who were the fans and who were the professionals. And when he would go to the fans first and sign whatever they had. If they had a picture and they had a stick or whatever, he'd sign that, regardless of how many they had, he'd sign them. Now, the professionals that were there, he'd sign one of their items. He'd say to them, one item of yours, I'll sign it, that's it. And so sometimes it would bypass the 10 minutes. The bus was supposed to leave at 5:30. Jerome's still there at 5:35, still signing autographs, and the other players are anxious to get to the arena. And it was the same thing after the games. He if there were fans around, he would go right out and sign autographs, regardless. But the one night that really stands out for me off the ice with Jarome was in 2004, the playoff run the team had. The night that they defeated San Jose in the Saddle Dome to win the series and win the Western Conference Championship. I go leaving the Saddle Dome about an hour and a half after the game, and it's raining that night. So we're out in the back parking lot where I parked my car. There's Jarome in the middle of the parking lot, signing autographs for a bunch of kids that are out there. He's not only signing autographs, but he's asked them how they're doing in school, how they're doing with their parents, and all that sort of thing. And I'm thinking, this is the night to celebrate with his teammates, as I'm sure he caught up with them later, but he put fans first, as was always the case. Yeah.
He was always a great guy. He's a very gracious man, too.
Yeah.
You think about what he did for Kidsport.
Yeah.
Kidsport, although everybody knows about them now,
they were an unknown entity around that time,
And both Perry and I used to run the 3-on-3, ESO 3-on-3 pond hockey.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, which, we brought Kidsport in as one of the beneficiaries, and Jarome started working with them, and he came to a couple of our events, which was like...
It was awesome.
It was awesome, but it was so rare that you'd get a current player doing something, for the alumni or with the alumni. And you think about, what he did for Kidsport and how that's carried on with Johnny.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, right to him.
Yeah.
Well, and talk about the significance of that trade for the organization. What would have happened? Those were bad teams through that Jarome era. They were they didn't have any depth. It was Jarome carrying the load.
It was Jarome's team for 8 or 9 years.
So what if that trade doesn't happen?
The team might not be here today.
Wow.
If that team didn't have Jarome, there would probably have been smaller crowds there.
Yeah.
And he was there were other factors, obviously, but he was one of the key factors in the team going to the finals in 2004.
Wow. And
if that team, doesn't make the playoffs that year, that's 8 straight years, no playoffs. And I can remember games early in that 2003-2004 season. There weren't 9,000 people in the building.
It's scary.
It was scary. And
people forget.
It looked bad.
Yeah.
People forget that.
Yes, yeah. And by the end of that year, it was sellouts every night.
Yeah.
And then the team, of course, goes to Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Finals. The next year, there's no hockey at all.
Yeah.
Because the league has locked out the entire players for the entire season. So if that team doesn't make the playoffs, and they were headed that way early on, that's 8 years, no playoffs. Next year, there's no hockey.
Ooh.
You think the people are going to come back 19,000 strong every night? So, that's the impact that, Jarome and he was the leader.
So where do you rank him and Flames players all time?
Well, there's all kinds of different ways you can look at it, but I think considering how many games he played and all the goals he scored and all the points he collected, you'd have to say he's the guy. Now, if Lenny had played 14 years with the Flames, or if Duendijk had played 14 years, or Theo Fleury, then they might be in the same category as well. But he's got records that I don't think anybody's going to touch on the Flames for goals and assists and games played.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Cheers to Jarome.
Yeah.
Cheers to Jarome.
Cheers to Jarome.
Jarome.
Iginla, Jarome Iginla, 50 goals. Hey!